Hey guys! Tonight we drift across the calm, dark waters of ancient Greece, not the parts full of marble statues or epic battles, but a stranger, saltier little corner where the gods have hangovers and the dolphins have secrets. The stars above are just bright enough to hint at a shoreline, and lying there in a tangle of kelp and wet sand is a man who may or may not be divine. You can't tell yet. He's got a lazy smile, smells faintly of grapes, and seems to be either napping or waiting. The air is cool tonight. The waves roll in slow and sleepy. Somewhere behind you, a lyre is being plucked gently out of tune, probably by someone half asleep or half sober. Either way, it fits the mood. You shuffle a bit closer to the stranger, who blinks at you like he's been expecting company. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while we're settling in, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The man's robes are damp, stained with something purple. It could be wine or maybe berries, but the way he hums to himself and the little vine curling up from his collar says, this isn't your average sleepy fisherman. He stretches slowly, arms overhead, and lets out a sigh that smells oddly fermented. You glance around the beach abandoned fishing nets, an old amphora half buried in the sand, and those footprints, wide, wet, purple-soled tracks leading from the water straight up to where he now lounges. You're curious. He seems too relaxed, too aware. So you follow the trail back a few steps, toes digging into the sand. The footprints aren't normal. Each one leaves a faint floral scent behind, like blooming vines and crushed figs. Behind you, he chuckles. Looking for something, he mumbles. You say nothing, just keep tracing the prints, wondering how someone can leak wine from their feet. You don't get far before a low creek draws your gaze out toward the water. A boat, rocking lazily offshore, half-shadowed in moonlight. Not a grand trireme or a sleek merchant vessel, this one's small, worn, and a bit crooked. You can just make out a handful of figures on deck, arguing in hushed, irritated tones. Pirates, probably. Not the romantic kind, either more the desperate, sea-worn type who trade in stolen goats and bad decisions. Back on the sand, the man yawns again. They're going to make a mistake, he says casually, and I'm too tired to stop them. You squint at him. You're not going to warn them. He waves a hand, lazily dismissing the idea. I gave them a chance. They saw me glowing. Right, glowing. You look closer, and for just a second, it's true. His skin isn't just lit by moonlight, it seems to catch the light, hold it, and shimmer. Not flashy, not dramatic, just enough to say, this person is something else. Still, the pirates are rowing closer. On deck, one of them is pointing toward the beach, mouthing something like, easy ransom. Another shrugs. They're not exactly visionaries. To them, this is just another opportunity wrapped in wet robes. You glance again at the stranger. He hasn't moved. But now there's a faint breeze from the sea, warm and sweet, not salty, not fishy, but like summer vines and overripe grapes left too long in the sun. It makes your head feel heavy in a pleasant, syrupy way. Should I stop them, you ask? He shakes his head. It's too late. And it is. The pirates are stepping onto the beach, swords drawn, but hesitantly. Their sandals sink into the sand as they approach the man. You half expect him to leap up, lightning in his eyes, wine-dark vengeance pouring from his fingertips. But he just stretches again, sits up slightly. The pirates surround him, exchanging glances. One pokes him gently with the flat of his blade. I wouldn't do that, you murmur. They ignore you. Another pirate leans down. You there? What's your name? The man looks up, a lopsided grin spreading across his face. I have many... which is not the answer they want. Before they can react, one of them mutters, "He's drunk. Get him aboard." They hoist him up, not roughly, but not gently either. His feet leave purple marks on their shirts. His hair drops petals as it sways. And he lets them. They march him back to the ship, clamber aboard with their prize, and you're left standing on the beach, mouth slightly open, feeling like someone just picked a fight with the moon. A soft laugh echoes behind you. You turn, but he's gone, except those footprints are still there, leading both ways, from the sea to the man, and from the man back into the sea, as though he'd walked out and in. Out on the boat, the crew starts raising the sails. The sea is glassy, too still. The wind suddenly dies. And you feel that heavy sweetness again, like something rich and ancient has just started to wake up. Somewhere in your brain, a little voice whispers, "You probably won't survive this." The sail flaps once and then falls still. The boat doesn't move. Not forward, not backward, just a strange, stubborn stillness that makes even the waves seem too quiet. You watch as the pirates scramble, muttering, tugging at ropes. The oars splash, but don't bite the water the way they should. It's as if the sea has suddenly decided to be syrup, or maybe it just doesn't like where this ship is going. On deck, the man sits cross-legged now, the same lazy posture he had on the beach. He looks more comfortable than anyone should be while technically kidnapped. One of the pirates pushes a crust of bread at him. He declines with a smile. Another offers a flask. He accepts, takes a sip, and suddenly the air carries that same warm, grape-heavy aroma from before. And then it starts. You notice it first along the edges of the hull, creeping green. Thin tendrils of ivy reaching up over the sides of the boat. The kind of ivy that grows in gardens, sure, but not overnight, not in the middle of the sea, not while you're watching. The pirates are too busy bickering to notice. Someone blames the sails, someone else curses the tide, and someone in the back is grumbling about how the cargo is cursed. He's closer to the truth than he wants to be. One of them finally spots it. What in Hades? He leans over the side and sees a full vine snaking up past the rudder, complete with glossy leaves and tiny white flowers. Flowers blooming at sea. More vines curl along the railing. They slither like lazy snakes, wrap around posts, tangle into the ropes, and then they bloom everywhere. Small, fragrant, purple-dappled blossoms popping open one after the other, as if the boat is taking a deep floral breath. The pirates panic. Of course. Swords flash out, trying to cut the greenery, but the vines are fast. They don't fight back, but they grow. One wraps around a cutlass and promptly splits it in half with a snap. Another curls delicately around someone's ankle, just tight enough to suggest you could sit down now. You're still watching from the beach, squinting in disbelief. The stranger, or God, at this point, let's be honest, just yawns and leans back against the mast, which is also now flowering. No one's steering the ship anymore. The crew starts pulling at the sails again, trying to force movement, but instead of catching the wind, the sails unravel into vines too. Great lengths of canvas turning green, transforming into oversized leaves as though the ship itself wants to become a garden. It's almost beautiful. If you weren't watching several grown men scream over what is essentially aggressive plant life, someone tries to light a torch. Bad idea. The flame sputters and dies with a hiss, and the torch stick sprouts tiny grape bunches from its end, like it changed career paths mid-use. By now, the deck is a riot of green and violet. Ivy loops lazily around every beam, and a gentle floral haze rises from the blossoms. The pirates stumble, cough, some of them giggling uncontrollably like they've been drinking invisible wine. The air around the ship thickens, not with smoke, not with fog, but with something dreamlike. You get the sense this isn't just a prank. This is a statement, the kind gods make when they've decided to be poetic. And then comes the sound. A low, melodic hum. Not from the wind, not from the sea. It's music, but no instrument you recognize. Somewhere between the crooning of a flute and the buzz of bees in clover. It winds through the ship like a lullaby laced with warning. The god hums along. His fingers twitch as if conducting. He's still smiling, but now there's something behind his eyes. Something old. Back on deck, one pirate slips on a bunch of grapes. Actual grapes, now rolling freely underfoot. Another one slaps him, and they both laugh. Not because it's funny, but because they can't stop. Their bodies are shaking with wine-heavy laughter. It's not normal. It's too much. Too sudden. You remember hearing once that Dionysus, god of wine, madness, and theater, could gift joy and frenzy in equal measure. And right now, it seems like he's doing both, generously. One pirate, maybe the youngest, starts playing an imaginary flute. There's no instrument in his hands, but his fingers move with purpose, and the same eerie tune echoes louder. Historians still argue, you whisper, whether Dionysus was worshipped more out of love or fear. You're starting to understand why that debate exists. Among the weirder historical tidbits, some accounts claim that Dionysus traveled with a band of satyrs who could drink rivers dry and still dance. Others say he once turned an entire village's water supply into wine after they doubted him. No one agrees on when he was born, if gods can be said to be born, but multiple versions suggest he was twice born, once from a mortal woman and once from Zeus's thigh, which, frankly, is a weird place to keep a baby. Back on the ship, the vines start to bloom faster. Some twist into little wreaths and perch atop the pirates' heads, like they've been crowned without asking. Still no wind, still no waves, but now something changes. The panther shows up. Yes, a panther. You're not sure where it came from. One moment the prow of the ship was covered in ivy. The next, there's a sleek black shape stretched across it, yawning like it just woke up from a 10-year nap. The pirates freeze. The panther blinks, licks a paw, looks mildly annoyed by the humidity. You want to believe it's an illusion, some magical projection. But then it sneezes, and 3 pirates scream. One drops his sword, another drops his lunch. The god Dionysus now, you're sure of it, gives the panther a lazy nod, like greeting an old roommate who just got home. You'd almost feel bad for the pirates, but they really did bring this on themselves. The vines tighten, the flowers pulse, the music swells, and the panther purrs. At this point, the ship is no longer a ship. It's a floating garden party hosted by chaos and garnished with bad decisions. Vines hang from every mast like garlands for a festival no one intended to throw. The deck creaks under the weight of both plant life and sheer, unrelenting weirdness. A pirate tries to run, but he only makes it to the bow before tripping over a grapevine, sprawling face first into what appears to be a wreath that immediately fastens itself to his head like it was waiting for him. Dionysus is humming again, softly, but with that same tune that makes your spine feel like it's being stirred. His fingers swirl in the air, and the vines seem to respond, not dancing exactly, but growing in rhythm. The panther stretches and jumps down from the prow, landing with a heavy thump that echoes across the wood. You don't need a prophecy to know that things are about to escalate. The pirates scramble to the far end of the ship, clumped together like a pile of damp, terrified chickens. One of them tries to rally the group with a shout of, "He's just a man," but it comes out in a shaky squeak. The rest don't look convinced. Understandable. Really, when said man is now levitating about an inch off the deck and idly sprouting grapevines from his wrists like party favors. There's something fascinating about how casual Dionysus is. He's not angry. He's not even trying that hard. If anything, he looks mildly amused, like he's watching a very slow play unfold and wondering if he should have brought a chair. One pirate finally gets bold enough to raise a weapon. He charges forward, sword raised, and promptly trips over a perfectly coiled vine that wasn't there a second ago. His momentum carries him into a barrel, which explodes in a burst of wine and startled fish. The others don't follow. Dionysus finally speaks. His voice is soft, but carries like thunder across water. "Children of the sea," he says, "I gave you a chance. I smiled. I shared. You could have offered me passage, a drink, a little respect, but you chose chains." Chains. Right. You glance at the god's wrists and realize they are still bound. Not tightly, but enough to be insulting. One of the pirates stammers, "We didn't know." "Now you do," Dionysus replies. And with that, the vines surge. They don't strangle, they don't whip or lash or constrict. That would be too easy, too ordinary. Instead, they bloom everywhere. Vines tangle through the rigging and burst into full bunches of wine-dark grapes. Leaves unfurl the size of shields, shading the ship from the moonlight. A fig tree sprouts near the helm. A flute, previously imaginary, is now real and playing itself. The pirates fall to their knees, eyes wide, mouths open, as the music twists around them. Some start crying, one starts laughing. Another claps in slow, dazed rhythm, as if trying to join in. Their minds aren't built for this kind of magic. Few are. A historical side note: ancient Greek sailors were deeply superstitious. They painted eyes on their ships to ward off evil spirits, prayed to Poseidon before every voyage, and made sacrifices to any deity even rumored to control the sea. Dionysus. He was a land god. Right, wine, parties, maybe some madness, sure, but no one expected him to take a sudden interest in maritime affairs, which is probably why these pirates never stood a chance. Historians still argue, you murmur, whether this story was meant as a warning, a comedy, or both. Either way, it's effective. The air grows thicker. The ship rocks gently now, not from waves but from something deeper, like the sea itself is pulsing to the beat of the music. The panther prowls slowly toward the pirates, tail swishing. It doesn't growl. It doesn't pounce. It simply walks an embodiment of calm, feline doom. The pirates panic. Finally, they surge to the railing, trying to jump, swim, escape anything but stay on a ship that's clearly hosting some divine fever dream. Dionysus raises a hand. The vines retreat just enough to let them pass, and they leap. One by one, splash by splash, they throw themselves into the sea. Not all at once, some are slower, more hesitant, but eventually, every single one tumbles into the water. You expect screams, you expect thrashing, you get silence. Then a ripple, a shimmer. And something else breaks the surface. Not heads, not arms, fins. The first one appears just off the stern, a sleek, curved shape slicing through the water. Then another, and another. Dolphins. Dozens of them, swimming, circling, weaving through the moonlit waves like they've always belonged there. You blink. No pirate resurfaces, not a splash, not a cough. Just dolphins. And maybe you can't be sure, but maybe that one closest to the ship looks back. Not at the god, at you. Like it remembers something, like it knows you're watching. Dionysus steps to the rail, robes flowing gently in the breeze that's finally returned. He watches the dolphins for a long time, face calm, content, as if this was always the ending, as if no other conclusion would have sufficed. Behind him, the panther yawns again and curls up on a bed of vines. The god speaks softly, "Better this way." And he's not wrong. Because dolphins, they're oddly human, friendly, playful, curious. Some ancient sailors even believed they were the souls of lost mariners, reborn with fins and freedom. And now, watching them twist and leap through the night. It makes sense. They swim with purpose, with joy, like men who just escaped a very bad plan and got rewarded with a better life. Dionysus turns back to the center of the ship. He stretches. The vines slowly begin to recede. The flowers fall gently to the deck. Now, just petals. The fig tree remains, swaying slightly. He sits down, cross-legged again, hands in his lap. Smiling? The music fades, and the sea is calm once more. The ship drifts now, quiet and strangely elegant. Not a prisoner transport anymore. Not a pirate vessel, just a floating memory, scented with grape leaves and echoes of music that has already forgotten itself. The sails have regrown into canvas. The vines have mostly retreated, though here and there a rogue tendril clings to a railing like it's reluctant to leave. You stand at the shoreline, still watching. The dolphins are vanishing into the dark, sleek backs rising and falling in rhythm. It's hypnotic, the kind of rhythm that slows your breathing without asking. Dionysus remains seated. He doesn't glance your way, doesn't acknowledge the transformation he just pulled off like it was a lazy magic trick. You're not even sure he's awake anymore. Just one god, barefoot, sitting in the middle of a boat full of petals and mystery. You wonder, quietly, how often he does this. How many ships make the mistake? How many dolphins out there were once people with poor decision-making skills and questionable facial hair? A breeze picks up. Warmer now, friendly, like the sea is exhaling in relief. The ship rocks gently as if to say, "That'll do." And slowly, so slowly you almost miss it, the god stands. He stretches, arms reaching skyward, fingers spread like branches. His robes ripple, the faint shimmer of divinity washing over him again, like sunlight catching oil on water. The moonlight flickers slightly around him, like it's being filtered through wine-dark glass. You don't hear a command, no shout, no divine decree, just a stillness that deepens, like the world is pausing to see what happens next. And then the ship moves. Not by sail, not by oar, but by will. It glides away from the beach, slicing through the now glassy water as if the sea itself has decided to escort its guest. The god lifts one hand in your direction. It's not a wave, not exactly. More like a casual acknowledgement, like two people passing each other in a dream and thinking, "Ah, you too." And then he's gone, just a shape in the dark, growing smaller, swallowed by horizon. You sit down on the sand. Because, really, what else are you going to do after witnessing pirates turn into dolphins? You lean back, let the warmth of the sand soak into your arms, and think that could have gone worse. Because, fun fact, Dionysus doesn't always take the polite approach. Some ancient stories tell of him driving entire villages mad. Others say he could call forth armies of wild women maenads who'd dance for days and tear apart anyone who interrupted. In one city, they refused to let him in, so he made the women leave their homes and roam the hills, singing and howling under the moon until the city begged for mercy. But tonight he chose mercy, kind of. The pirates are alive, just considerably more streamlined. And in case you're wondering whether the ancient Greeks really believed all this, oh yes, whole festivals were built around Dionysus. The Dionysia in Athens involved plays, parades, and so much wine the sidewalks probably sloshed. Historians still argue whether those festivals were religious rituals or just the ancient world's most organized excuse to party. It's also worth noting that in many versions of this tale, Dionysus doesn't even punish the pirates right away. He gives them several chances to recognize who he is. He tries being nice. He lets the vines creep slowly. He gives them wine. He's patient. Too patient. Maybe. But when that last thread snaps, when the final olive-headed fool tries to tie up a god, he flips the switch, and he does it with flair. Not thunder, not lightning, Just wine, music, and dolphins. And honestly, that's a mood. You stretch your legs and spot something glinting beside your foot. A coin. Not modern. Old. Worn. Possibly bronze. On one side, a face with ivy curling through the hair. On the other, a cluster of grapes. You pick it up. It's warm. Could be coincidence. Could be souvenir. Or maybe Dionysus tips well. You hear laughter behind you. Not loud. Just a chuckle. You spin, but no one's there. Just the gentle ripple of waves and the far-off splash of dolphins, still enjoying their new lives. You stay seated. Let your eyelids get a little heavier. The moon shifts slightly in the sky, casting shadows that don't look quite the same as before. One even resembles a satyr with a wine jug, if you tilt your head the right way. You're thinking about how odd it is this god, with one foot in joy and one in madness. He's not like Zeus, with thunderbolts and bluster. Not like Apollo, with his sun god abs and self-importance. Dionysus is subtle, sneaky. He lets people fall into their own chaos, then laughs and turns it into a poem. And maybe that's why you kind of like him. He punishes, yes, but with transformation, with new beginnings, with oddly specific animal metamorphosis. You lie back, arms behind your head, and whisper, "Thanks for the show." Somewhere out on the water, a dolphin leaps, just once, high, silhouetted against the stars. You grin. It's probably coincidence. Probably. Your eyes drift closed, just for a moment, but when you open them again, it's morning, or what feels like morning. The sky is a soft gray, not quite sunrise, not quite night. That strange twilight in between when the world forgets what time it is. You sit up slowly, sand sticking to your back, and squint toward the sea. The ship is gone. No trace of sails, no trailing vines, no fig tree at the helm. Just endless water with the occasional ripple. Maybe a fish. Maybe something remembering it used to walk on two legs. You stretch your arms. Your shoulders crack like old temple stones. The coin is still in your hand. Cool now. You tuck it into your pocket like a talisman. Maybe it'll keep you out of trouble. Or maybe it'll attract exactly the right kind. You wander a little farther along the beach, feet sinking into the damp sand. The tide is low, revealing clusters of shells and a piece of driftwood shaped like a dolphin if you squint and ignore basic anatomy. There's a cave up ahead, small, craggy, just big enough to squeeze into if you're curious and slightly irresponsible, which, right now, you are. Inside, the air is cool and damp. Moss carpets the stone, and somewhere water drips with a rhythm that almost sounds like a heartbeat. You pause, blink, and in the low light, you see a painting. Not a modern one, not even a clean one, but scratched into the wall, faded with age, is a figure with wild hair and a crown of ivy. He's holding a cup, smiling. Beside him, dolphins. So many dolphins, some leaping, some grinning, one wearing what looks like a helmet. You run your fingers gently over the image. It's old, ancient, left here by someone who knew the story. Maybe someone who saw it. Maybe someone who lived it. The thought gives you a strange sense of comfort. In truth, the myth of Dionysus and the pirates shows up in a few ancient sources, the most famous being the Homeric hymns. These were poetic tributes to the gods, passed along orally and eventually written down. And this particular hymn, it's unusually playful. The god appears as a beautiful youth on a beach, gets rescued, kidnapped by pirates, and responds not with wrath, but with whimsy and transformation. Historians still argue whether the hymn was meant to flatter Dionysus or quietly mock the people who underestimated him. You step out of the cave, back into the light. The sea breeze tugs at your hair, and somewhere in the distance, there's a whistle, high and soft. Could be wind, Could be something with a blowhole. And suddenly, you remember the footprints. You backtrack to where the stranger had been lying in the sand the night before. The prints are still there, faded, but present, still purple, still faintly sweet-smelling. But now, they keep going, beyond where you first saw them. Beyond where the ship had docked, they arc gently up the shore and disappear into a field of wildflowers just above the tide line. You follow them. It's a strange little walk. Birds sing lazily from somewhere up the cliffside. A goat stares at you from behind a bush, chewing as if judging your pace. You climb gently, step by step, until you reach a patch of sunlit grass that smells like thyme and distant wine. And there, in the middle of the field, is a broken amphora. It's not shattered, just cracked open, like something spilled from it and kept spilling until the sea took over. Around it, the grass grows wild greener than the rest, like it was watered with something richer than rain. Tiny grapevines coil around the base, stubbornly alive. You sit beside it. Not everything about Dionysus is loud. Sometimes his presence is subtle. A party that ends in silence. A bottle that never seems to empty. A kind smile that leads you slightly off course, until you're dancing and don't remember why. He's not just the god of wine. He's the god of losing yourself and of finding something else in the process. That's the thing ancient Greeks feared and loved about him. He brought freedom, but it came with surrender. You couldn't hold back. Not with Dionysus. You had to give in, whether it was to joy, to madness, to music, or to some new form of being. He didn't destroy you. He converted you. That's what happened to the pirates. They didn't die. They didn't get cursed forever to some tragic fate. They got repurposed, turned into something faster, sleeker, more fluid, something closer to joy. And now they're out there, somewhere, still leaping, still swimming, maybe nudging boats that get too close to jagged rocks, maybe saving the occasional sailor who gets tossed overboard, maybe just playing. It's kind of nice, you think. You lie back in the grass, the broken amphora beside you. The sun is warmer now. A breeze rolls in off the sea, carrying with it the faint scent of grapes and salt. A dragonfly zips past your nose. For a second, you swear you hear laughter again. Soft, tired, amused, like someone chuckling from behind a bush just out of sight. You don't turn your head. Let him have his privacy. You close your eyes and think about vines on ships, and flutes with no players, and pirates who didn't read the warning signs fast enough. You think about how transformation isn't always punishment. Sometimes, it's just a god's way of saying, try again, but with fins. You stay there a while, the sun slipping higher behind thin clouds, painting everything in warm gold and sleepy lavender. The grass breathes around you. That broken amphora leans like it's been waiting for centuries just to have someone notice it again. Nothing stirs too much, just wind, soft light, and your thoughts, still echoing with panther paws and laughter from beyond reason. Eventually, curiosity gets the better of you. You sit up and wander inland, not far just over a small rise where the wildflowers fade into olive trees and the path narrows. It's not marked. It doesn't need to be. Your feet find it on their own. At the top, there's a small stone altar. Simple, a flat slab. No carvings, just a few ancient offerings, a wine jug, dry from age, a scattering of old figs, and, most curious, a flute, cracked but intact. You reach out to touch it, half expecting it to play itself again. It doesn't, just sits there, humming with silence. And then you notice it carved faintly into the base of the altar, nearly worn away by centuries of wind and worship. Are dolphins? Dozens of them, leaping in a circle around the stone. A shrine, not for Apollo, not for Zeus. This is Dionysian, one of his quieter spots. No temples, No roaring festivals, just a patch of land where someone remembered, long ago, and kept the memory safe. You sit beside it, letting the cool shade of the olive trees wrap around your shoulders. And while you rest, stories begin to filter into your mind like wine into clay. Because here's the thing about Dionysus, the myths never sit still. They twist, they change, they shapeshift like the god himself. One moment, he's a child torn apart and reborn from Zeus's thigh weird visual. Yes, the next, he's a wandering stranger with a vine-wrapped staff and a knowing smile. And no matter where he goes, trouble follows, but so does freedom. There's a fringe tradition, rarely told, that Dionysus wasn't even Greek, that he came from the East Phrygia or India, depending on who you ask, that he swept across the world with his strange cult, teaching people not just how to drink wine, but how to break boundaries, between pain and joy, between sanity and madness, between who you think you are and what you might become. Historians still argue whether his rites were subversive protests or deeply healing rituals. You muse, tracing a dolphin with your finger. And the pirates, they were just another version of that test. Presented with something divine, they responded with fear. They tried to control it, tie it up, sell it. And Dionysus, being Dionysus, didn't punish them in a thunderous, dramatic way. He gave them a new shape. That was always his style. Quiet wrath, beautiful consequences. You think about how strange it is that dolphins became part of his story. Dolphins, of all creatures, friendly, curious, playful, and yet, somehow, eternally mysterious. Scientists study their intelligence. Sailors tell tales of their rescues. Some ancient mariners believed that dolphins carried the souls of the dead safely to the Isles of the Blessed. So maybe Dionysus didn't just change those pirates. Maybe he rescued them from themselves, from their small, greedy lives, from the path they were on, full of crime and coin and shallow thinking. You smile, imagining the first pirate to figure out how to swim. Probably a moment of panic, followed by a moment of glee. You remember another myth, one less popular, but still whispered in some corners of dusty libraries. It says Dionysus once turned himself into a lion just to scare a few bandits away from his traveling party. Another time, he appeared as a gentle girl to trick a king into letting down his guard. And always, he left chaos in his wake. Not destruction, not cruelty, just transformation. And afterward, people were never quite the same. Which makes sense. You don't meet a god and walk away untouched. Even now, sitting in this quiet olive grove, something's shifted in you, just a little. Like your bones remember how it felt to hear vines growing in moonlight. Like your skin still hums with the brush of divine music. It's not scary, it's not even strange anymore. It's just part of the story. Eventually, you stand and bow slightly to the altar, not because you believe, necessarily, but because it feels right. A gesture of respect, a nod to the god who travels in disguise and teaches lessons through laughter. And when you turn to walk away, you swear for half a second the flute on the altar plays a single perfect note. It could be wind. Or it could be Dionysus, whispering, good instincts. You walk back down the slope, the grass cool underfoot. The tide is higher now, covering the path of purple footprints. The sea has smoothed over everything, as if it all never happened. But in your pocket, the coin is still there, warm again. And you smile, because you know better. You make your way along the shore again, this time heading the opposite direction, not toward the place where the ship vanished, but inland, toward the edge of a village you hadn't noticed before. It's small, old, but lived in. Whitewashed walls, blue shutters, goats napping under olive trees. The kind of place where time doesn't rush, where stories get passed down with bread and wine. You're not sure what draws you in. Maybe it's the soft scent of rosemary and charcoal smoke. Maybe it's the laughter drifting on the wind, gentle and unrushed. Or maybe it's that sense, the one you can't quite name, that the story isn't finished yet. At the center of the village is a small square. A fountain burbles lazily, its water clear and cool. A woman sells figs under a faded cloth canopy. A child chases a chicken with absolutely no chance of success. And nearby, in the shade of a fig tree, an old man plays a reed flute. You stop. The melody is simple, almost clumsy, but familiar. Too familiar? It's the tune from the ship. Slower, softer, but unmistakable. You sit on a low stone wall, and the old man glances at you, nods, and keeps playing. He's not dressed like a priest. No golden robes, no ivy crown. Just a faded linen shirt and hands that look like they've planted more than one vineyard. When he finishes, he leans back and sighs. You followed the dolphins, didn't you? You blink? What? He chuckles. Everyone does, sooner or later. You try to come up with something clever. Nothing comes out. He doesn't seem to mind. They were fools, he says, but lucky, that's the best kind. You nod slowly. You knew them. He shrugs. Not personally, but we all know someone who tries to cage the wild. Tie it down, bottle it up, and sell it. You think of the pirates grimy, suspicious, eager for profit. And you think of them now, sliding through sunlit waves with their fins slicing clean arcs in the water. A strange kind of redemption. The old man reaches into his bag and pulls out a loaf of bread and 2 small cups. He pours from a skin of wine that looks older than some gods. You accept the cup. It smells of figs and something darker, earthier. To Dionysus, he says. You hesitate? He raises an eyebrow. To dolphins, you counter? He laughs, and it's a good sound. You sip. It's warm, rich, and unsettlingly alive. Not like store-bought wine, like it remembers where it came from. So, you ask, was he always like that? The old man shrugs. He changes. Sometimes he's a boy, soft and weeping. Other times he's a lion, or a panther, or a woman wrapped in vines. Depends what you need. You tilt your head, what I need. Or what you deserve, he says, with a half smile. And suddenly you get it. Dionysus isn't about what makes sense. He's about what feels. He's the flicker at the edge of your vision when you dance too long, or cry too hard, or laugh for no reason in the middle of the night. He's the god who shows up, not when you ask politely, but when you lose control. The pirates didn't understand that. They saw a quiet man on a beach and thought, easy coin. They saw soft robes, sleepy eyes. They missed the shimmer, the wine-dark depth, the warning in the air. And they paid the price, or maybe they earned the reward. Historians still argue whether the pirates were punished or blessed. You say aloud, more to yourself than to him. The old man taps his flute against his knee. Same thing, sometimes. There's a pause. Then he asks, did he say anything to you? You nod slowly, just better this way. He grins. Sounds like him. The wind shifts slightly. A few leaves spiral down from the fig tree. One lands in your lap. Perfect, fresh, shaped like a tiny trident. The old man stands. He'll come again. You know. Dionysus. He nods. Always does. Shows up just when things get too stiff, too orderly. Reminds people they're animals. Too... It's an unsettling thought, but not a bad one. You rise, thank him for the wine, and begin to walk again, leaving the square behind. You don't look back. You're not sure the old man will still be there if you do. You pass through the rest of the village in quiet thought. Every now and then, A breeze carries a burst of laughter or the echo of a flute. Someone has hung grapevines across a doorway. A goat wears a wreath of flowers, looking vaguely embarrassed about it. You reach the far side of town and step once again into open countryside. The land rolls gently. Olive trees give way to tall grasses. And somewhere up ahead, past a rise, you hear waves again. Back to the sea. Because of course it loops like this. Dionysus is a god of cycles, of return, of going out of your mind and coming back different, better, or weirder, or both. And now, standing on the ridge above the water, you see something breaking the surface. Not a ship. Not a man. A dolphin. It leaps, spins, splashes down with such perfect joy that you laugh out loud. Maybe that one was the captain. You watch a while longer, breathing deep, the wind warm on your face. You feel something new settle into your chest. Not certainty, but something softer. Something true. You stay on the ridge longer than you expect, legs folded beneath you, elbows on knees, eyes tracing every flick of water below. The dolphins are still out there. Maybe 2, maybe 5. You can't tell if they're different or if one is just particularly enthusiastic. You smile. You want to believe they're the pirates, still out for a good splash after their highly unplanned divine makeover. The sky begins to tint lavender again, that in-between hour where time seems to double back on itself. You think of vines growing faster than thought, of panthers stretching across decks, of flutes playing in the dark without fingers. It's hard to believe all of that happened in just one night. But then, it didn't. Not really. Myths don't operate on normal time. One night in the world of gods can stretch for centuries. One lesson can echo through 100 generations. You blink, and you realize you're still inside the story. You walk down from the ridge, toward the water's edge again. This part of the beach is different, rockier, less welcoming, the kind of place fishermen avoid, too sharp for nets and too shallow for boats. And yet, here and there, you spot signs. Not trash, not modern, just things that feel old. A broken oar, half buried in the sand. A tangle of rope threaded through with seaweed. And, most curiously, a carved piece of wood rounded, polished by salt, etched faintly with a spiral motif. You brush it clean. It's part of a lyre. The rest is gone, but the spiral remains, holding a memory of music. You carry it with you as you wander along the tide line. And then you see it? Another footprint. Not yours, not fresh, half covered by wind, but still there. Purple-souled, just one. A god was here, again. You look around, half expecting Dionysus to be lounging on a rock, sipping wine, offering unsolicited wisdom. But the beach is empty, just you and the sea, and the echo of something enormous that already moved on. And yet you feel it. He's not done with you. Because there's something about Dionysus that lingers, not in an oppressive way, not like thunderclouds or curses. He's subtler. He's that sliver of laughter in serious moments, that urge to dance in the kitchen at midnight, that second glass of wine when you swore you were going to bed. And you start thinking about what else he's responsible for. The ancient Greeks didn't just tie Dionysus to drunkenness and revelry. He was also the patron of theater, of masks, of transformation. He was worshipped in both the ecstatic screams of the maenads and the measured poetry of the tragedians. Historians still argue whether Dionysus represented chaos or catharsis. You think aloud, watching the tide. But you suspect the answer is yes. Both. Because to release something, to really let it go, you have to first feel it completely. Dionysus doesn't allow repression. He demands expression. Sometimes through joy. Sometimes through frenzy. sometimes through a flute that plays itself on a doomed pirate ship. You walk farther and find a strange little inlet, a quiet cove wrapped in stone, hidden from the main shoreline. It's peaceful here, more private, the kind of place where you might whisper something important to the sea and trust that it wouldn't tell anyone. You sit. For a while, you don't think, you just breathe. The waves hush against the rocks. A few birds call in the distance. Something shimmers on the surface of the water. Too fast to name. A fish, maybe, or something more curious. Your hand brushes something smooth in the sand. You pick it up. A stone, perfectly round, polished, carved faintly with what looks like a bunch of grapes. You stare at it, laugh softly. Of course. You're collecting a myth like it's leaving breadcrumbs for you. Purple, vine-wrapped breadcrumbs that hum with old laughter and half-finished songs. You lie back, letting the sun warm your face. You close your eyes. And in the darkness behind your lids, you see him. Not clearly, just pieces. A young man in robes that shift like mist, eyes that twinkle with too many stories, a crown of ivy, bare feet, purple footprints, a hand stretched toward you, as if saying, "Come on, it's your turn now." You don't take the hand. Not yet. But you smile. Because you get it now. Dionysus isn't here to be understood. He's here to be felt. He doesn't want obedience. He wants surrender to the moment, to the feeling, to the truth, hiding inside the chaos. And suddenly, you wonder how many other dolphins are out there. Not just the pirates, but all the people over the centuries who ran into him, who resisted, who surrendered, who got a second chance in a different shape. You wonder what he'd turn you into. Probably not a dolphin. That's been done. Maybe a bird, maybe a wild fig tree, maybe something stranger. You laugh again. The kind of laugh that sneaks up on you, that bubbles from somewhere below logic. And just for a moment, the sea laughs back. The sky begins to shift again, subtly, the way it always does when you're not quite watching. That sleepy drift from day into evening, the hour where shadows stretch, and the world seems to hold its breath. You sit in your little cove, the round grapestone still in your palm, listening to the sea as it brushes up against the rocks with a rhythm that's starting to feel like a lullaby. You feel changed, though nothing about you looks different, but inside, something's tilted, like your inner compass has started pointing toward a part of the map you didn't know existed. And then, softly, you hear it. Not music this time. Laughter. Not thunderous, not mocking, just a quick burst of joy. The kind that sneaks out in the middle of a story you didn't expect to love. You look up, but no one's there. Still, the feeling stays. You rise slowly, stretch, and head out of the cove, retracing your steps over the rocky edge. Your legs are stiff now, maybe from sitting too long, maybe from walking with a story that's heavier than it looks. The wind picks up again, cooler now, and with it the scent of something you can't place. Not wine, not salt, something older. You walk along the coast until you spot another worn trail leading upward, this time into a sparse forest of pines. The needles crunch underfoot. The air is sharper here, more focused, less dreamy. You welcome the contrast. Dionysus may thrive in madness, but even he must rest. As you walk, you remember the dolphins again, the splash, the leap, the silent understanding in their eyes. You think about how transformation in the myths is rarely what people expect. It's not punishment, not reward, it's release. You once read that dolphins were sacred to several Greek gods, not just Dionysus. Apollo claimed them too. Even Poseidon had a soft spot for them. But only in Dionysus's story do they start as humans. Only in his myth do they become. It says something, doesn't it? That he doesn't destroy. He remakes. You reach the top of the path and find another unexpected clearing. A circle of flat stones, moss-covered and oddly warm to the touch. In the center, a crude stone column topped with something familiar, a theater mask. One side smiling. The other side smiling wider. No tragedy, just layers of joy stretched to the edge of madness. You chuckle, of course. Dionysus again. Because he wasn't just about wine and dolphins and pirates with bad timing. He was also the god of drama, of theater, of masks and illusion, and, maybe most importantly, of truth hiding behind performance. You sit beside the mask and think of the festivals held in his name, especially in Athens. The city Dionysia, a multi-day celebration filled with plays, processions, wine, and more wine. Comedies and tragedies performed in open-air theaters, packed with people laughing and weeping together in the same breath. Historians still argue whether the actors wore the masks to honor the gods or to hide themselves from what they revealed on stage. You suspect Dionysus would say both? He loved opposites. Laughter and weeping, joy and terror, wine and clarity. To him, the line between those things was just a vine-thin, winding, and often crossed without warning. You close your eyes and imagine being in that crowd. A warm spring night, stars overhead, the air rich with roasted olives and wine. On stage, a chorus sings, a god appears, a king falls. The audience gasps, weeps, and laughs all at once. And somewhere, in the back row, Dionysus claps along, wearing a mask just like everyone else. Maybe the pirates would have liked the theater. Maybe they'd have laughed too loud or heckled the actors. But eventually, they'd quiet. The god would reach them, in a line of poetry, in a gesture, in the way the story twists when no one expects it. You open your eyes again. The mask hasn't moved, but somehow it feels like it's watching you. Not judging, just noting. You leave it there and keep walking. The trail dips again, this time toward a meadow thick with thyme and clover. Bees drift lazily in the amber air. A goat watches you pass with regal indifference. You nod in solidarity. Eventually, the meadow opens up to reveal something strange, a circle of stones arranged around a hollow in the earth. Not a fire pit, not a temple, just a dip lined with grapevines, curling inward like they're guarding something. You step closer and peer in. At the center, half buried in vines and dust, is a goblet, simple, clay, unadorned. You don't touch it. You just stare and think. How many cups like this have been offered to Dionysus? How many people raised them, not knowing what they were asking for? Because to drink with Dionysus is to say, I'm ready to forget what I thought I knew. And that's not a small thing. It's terrifying. It's liberating. It's the first leap toward becoming something else. Like a pirate, mid-air, not knowing he's about to get fins. You sit beside the hollow. You don't drink, but you listen. To the bees. To the wind. To the faintest echo of flutes in the distance. And you realize the story isn't done. Not for you. Not for the pirates. Not for Dionysus, who is always arriving, always departing, always halfway into his next transformation. You close your eyes and whisper, "Thanks for not turning me into a dolphin." And maybe, just maybe, you hear a chuckle on the breeze. You wake from a nap you don't remember taking. Still beside the vine-curled hollow, still under the amber light of a fading afternoon. The goblet remains untouched. Bees still hum in the clover, but something in the air has shifted. A softness, a hush, like the world is waiting for the curtain to rise on Act 2. You sit up slowly, brushing dust from your clothes. The goblet is still there, half buried, dappled with sunlight. You almost reach for it. Almost. But instead, you follow the path again. Because there's more to see, more to understand. Even in this story, with no strict beginning and no real end. The trail narrows, winding into a cluster of cypress trees. Tall and dark and solemn. The light thins. The air cools. You feel your heartbeat slow, as if the forest itself is a lullaby. And then, woven through the silence like silver thread, you hear voices. Soft, layered, singing. You follow the sound. It draws you toward a small natural amphitheater, a dip in the earth surrounded by trees. And in the center, dancing in loose, swaying circles, is a group of people dressed in white and ivy. Some young, some old, all barefoot, all smiling. You hide at the edge of the clearing, not out of fear, out of reverence. They don't see you. Or maybe they do and just don't mind. They sing not words but syllables, ancient, rolling tones that sound less like language and more like wind across a field. Their movements are slow, rhythmic, like waves returning to shore. And in the middle, leading them, is a figure who looks familiar. You can't see his face, but the way he stands, the way he sways, it's him, Dionysus. Not grand, not glowing, just present, gentle, real. He claps in time, guiding the dancers like a shepherd leads sheep, or like vines guide the shape of a wall. You don't breathe for a moment, not out of fear, but awe. The god is here. Not storming, not commanding, just joining. And that somehow is even more powerful. Because for all his reputation, drunken madness, chaotic transformations, leaping panthers, this version of Dionysus is kind. He's not here to conquer. He's here to connect. The dance continues. One of the elders starts laughing mid-spin, and it spreads through the group like fire through dry grass. Not mocking laughter, just joy. Exhausted, full-bellied joy. They're not worshiping him. They're celebrating with him. You realize something then. Dionysus doesn't require devotion. He invites participation. He wants you in the story. That's why the pirates failed. They never joined, never opened their hands, never listened to the tune. They tried to take control of the song, and the song turned them into dolphins. You wonder if the dancers know the story. Probably. Maybe they were raised on it. Maybe they pass it down during feasts. Maybe some of them once dreamed of ships and vines and purple footprints, just like you did. Historians still argue whether these rituals were survival tools or sacred celebrations. You think, but does it matter when they feel like both? Eventually, the song ends. The dancers collapse into the grass, breathless and giggling. Dionysus, if it is him, steps aside, pours wine into wooden cups, and passes them around. There's no sermon, no lesson, just community, just presence. And suddenly, you feel brave. You step into the clearing. Nobody gasps. Nobody stops you. One of the dancers, an older woman with silver-streaked curls, hands you a cup. "Welcome back," she says. And there it is. That phrase again. Back! As if you've done this before. As if we all have. You sit with them, sip the wine. It's not heavy or dizzying. It's soft, like a memory you forgot was yours. And Dionysus. He sits beside you. Just for a moment. Doesn't say a word. Doesn't need to. He smells like thyme, honey, and something wild. You glance at him, ready to speak, but he lifts one finger to his lips. Not in warning. In peace. The moment holds. Then he's up again, pouring more wine, laughing with a child who's just learned to clap in rhythm. The group returns to song, and you join not perfectly, not loudly, but with your own rhythm. Your own voice. You don't know the words. Doesn't matter. They were never the point. You sing until the stars appear, until the trees glow silver, until the world itself hums in harmony. And then only then you understand. The myth was never about pirates. It was about permission. To lose yourself. To find something new. To become. The stars come out slowly, like they're being unveiled one by one, as if even the heavens are watching this night stretch its limbs. You lie back in the grass, surrounded by the warmth of the dancers, the hum of low conversation, the smell of crushed herbs and clay cups half full of laughter. Someone starts humming again. Someone else falls asleep mid-sentence. And Dionysus. Gone. Just gone. No flash, no flourish, no dramatic farewell. One moment he's sharing olives with a teenager who looks like they just discovered joy exists. And the next, there's only a faint trace of sandal prints and a vine slowly curling around a cup. And you know, somehow, that's the end of that moment. But not the end of the night. You sit up slowly, limbs loose and heavy with comfort, like your bones forgot to hold tension. Around you, the dancers begin to pack up gathering cloaks, sipping the last of the wine, brushing grass from their backs. They nod at you as they pass. Some smile. One hands you a fig and says nothing. You nibble it thoughtfully, savoring how impossibly figgy it is, like a fig that dreamed of being a fig its whole life and finally got the role. You begin walking again. Not far, just down a low slope past the clearing, where the trees thin and the ground levels into a wide, moonlit path of smooth stone. And then you see them. Dolphins. Not real ones this time. Carvings. Dozens of them etched along the path. Some leaping, some diving. Some twisting in impossible spirals. Ancient, smoothed by time, but still joyful. Still moving, even in stone. You walk alongside them, your footsteps echoing softly in the cool night air. And the myth loops back. Not in repetition, but in return. Because this isn't a straight story, it never was. Dionysus's tale folds in on itself, like grapevines growing backward and forward at once. He's born, then born again. He's rejected, then worshipped. He's mortal, then divine. He arrives in disguise and leaves without saying goodbye. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was one god or many stitched into one name, you whisper. And the more time you spend in his world, the more you realize he is contradiction. He's the festival and the hangover, the freedom and the madness, the flute solo and the moment the music stops and no one knows whether to laugh or cry. At the end of the dolphin path, you find another shrine, this one smaller, humble, just a circle of stones and a single torch still burning low. But beside it sits something curious, a weathered scroll, half unrolled, weighed down by a grapevine. You kneel. The writing is ancient, scratched in fading ink, but you recognize the name Dionysus, and below it, a list, not of prayers, not of names, just transformations. Man to dolphin, girl to laurel tree, king to stag, lyre to stone, mourner to nightingale. The last line trails off unfinished. You realize this is a record of all the people who met the gods and changed, not through punishment, through becoming. You wonder who wrote it. A priest, a poet, a pirate with unexpected calligraphy skills. Whoever they were, they understood Dionysus didn't leave people as he found them. He peeled away the masks they didn't know they were wearing. And if they couldn't handle it, well, fins aren't the worst outcome. You gently rewrap the scroll, place the grapevine back on top. It feels right. As you stand, something glints in the torchlight, Another coin. You pick it up. It's the same kind, bronze, worn, but on this one, the grapes have been replaced by waves. You smile. Not every pirate gets to keep their memory, but maybe some do. The wind picks up as you leave the shrine behind, warm, full of secrets, the kind of wind that carries music you can't quite place. You find yourself humming again, just a note or two, the melody that haunted the ship, the one that changed a crew forever. It feels like yours now. You follow the stone path as it begins to break apart, returning to dirt and moss, back to earth, back to quiet. And you realize something else the myth hasn't just looped. It's settled into you. You carry it now, not like a burden, like a vine around your shoulders, light, persistent, alive. The footprints are gone. The ship is gone. The god is gone. But the dolphins are still out there. And maybe, just maybe, so is your own moment of becoming. You glance over your shoulder one last time. Nothing there. But the torch is still burning. You wake again at the edge of dawn, or maybe you never slept, just drifted into the sort of waking dream Dionysus might approve of, soft around the edges, heavy with symbols, pleasantly confusing. The torchlight has faded now, only a smoking curl above the shrine, the grapevines still there, coiled like a sleeping cat atop the scroll. The coin in your hand feels cool now, but not cold. You slip it into your pocket with the others. Souvenirs, or maybe proof that all this wasn't just a dream, or if it was shared. As the first light begins to bleed into the sky, you make your way back to the coast. The world feels quieter now, like even nature has a hangover. Birds chirp, but softly. The sea moves, but slowly. Everything seems to be remembering what it did last night, and trying not to make eye contact. You walk for a long time, long enough to lose track of time altogether. It's one of Dionysus's lesser powers, maybe time slippage. You don't lose it. You just stop caring where it went. Eventually, you reach a cliff that overlooks the sea. The waves roll in below, deliberate and steady. You sit there and breathe it all in. The wind. The salt. The silence after the myth has finished telling itself. And then, because you're still thinking, still unspooling threads in your mind, you return to the core question. Who is Dionysus? Not just the god in this one myth, not just the panther summoner, the vine breather, the pirate transformer, but the idea of him. Why did the Greeks, who had gods for everything, sun, war, wisdom, love, create this one, this wine-drenched contradiction who both soothes and shatters? And maybe the answer lies in what humans need, not what we want. Zeus gives order. Apollo gives clarity. Athena gives strategy. But Dionysus gives release. You think of the theater again, the masks, the crowd laughing, crying, whispering to one another in the dark. All of them, together, letting go. For one night, for one myth. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was ever truly accepted by the Greek pantheon. You murmur, eyes on the horizon. He was too foreign, too strange, too wild. It's true he didn't come into Olympus quietly. Some myths say the other gods tried to deny him his seat, that they looked down on him, that they feared his ability to dismantle order without lifting a hand. And yet, he got in, not just as a guest, but as one of the 12 Olympians. Which means something. It means even in the heart of structured divinity, there must be space for chaos. And not just chaos as destruction, chaos as liberation. Because Dionysus doesn't break things to ruin them. He breaks things to set them free. You think of the pirates again, their greed, their mistake, their transformation. And you think, maybe that was the kindest thing anyone ever did for them. No trial, no lecture, just a change of form. A new way to be. And dolphins, well, they're not so bad. They're playful, graceful, strangely wise. There's a story obscure, rarely told about sailors lost at sea, ready to surrender to the waves. They pray not to Poseidon, but to Dionysus. And just before their raft sinks, dolphins appear. They guide the sailors to safety. One even lets a man cling to its back, carrying him to shore like a rescuer in smooth gray skin. The man lived, built a shrine, left wine on the beach every year until he died. You wonder how many myths like that are lost tiny and local, barely passed down. Someone's grandfather's grandfather saw something leap from the water and whispered, "That one used to be a man." And maybe they were right. The wind picks up. You stand again, brushing dust from your legs, and walk toward the edge of the cliff. Below, the waves churn gently. You see them. 2 dolphins, leaping. Just once. You wave without meaning to, and then you laugh, quiet but genuine. Because now you know. Dionysus doesn't always show up with a flourish. Sometimes he sends a story, a symbol, a second chance. Sometimes he sends dolphins. You stay there for a while longer, letting the sun warm your skin, the scent of thyme and sea blending into something almost holy. And when you finally turn to leave, you hear something. A soft tune. A flute. Somewhere out of sight. Familiar? And fading? The flute fades as you walk, the notes vanishing like morning mist, each one a thread slipping from the spool of the night's story. But they leave a gentle echo inside you, like a memory you didn't know was yours. You return to the coastal trail, following the slope as it winds inland again. This time, the path feels different. Not unfamiliar, just changed. Or maybe it's you that's changed. Same rocks, same breeze, but everything feels softer, like the land is sighing with you, glad that something unnamed has passed. You don't see anyone else for a while, just birds wheeling silently above, and the occasional flash of fur in the bushes. Rabbits, maybe? Or something that used to be a satyr? Hard to say. Eventually, you come to a place that feels like a halfway point between the wild and the built. A taverna, if you can call it that. Just a wooden structure with no walls, only 4 posts, and a roof of woven reeds. There's a table, 2 stools, a jug of wine left unattended. No one in sight. You sit. Because of course you do. You pour a little wine, just a sip. It's warm from the sun, dry and smoky, like it spent the morning remembering a fire. You raise the cup in a casual toast. To madness, to mercy. And you drink. There's no magic. No vines. No transformation. Just the quiet. Just the weight of what you now carry, this sleepy, fermented myth that curled around you like ivy and somehow rooted itself inside. You remember something odd in older depictions. Dionysus wasn't wild at all. He was young, soft-featured, even shy, a delicate god. Only later did he gain the panthers, the maenads, the chaos. Historians believe his myth evolved as Greece itself changed, absorbing new gods, new lands, new fears. Historians still argue whether Dionysus is one deity or a fusion of many ancient spirits. And that makes sense too. Because he wears many masks, and he makes you wear yours and then take them off. Not to humiliate you, but to reveal what was always underneath. You think again of the pirates. They didn't see a god. They saw a target. They didn't listen to the music. They tried to chain it. They couldn't let go of their small selves, and so Dionysus gave them new ones. Not as punishment, as possibility. Because dolphins are curious, clever, they listen, They play. They travel in pods and protect their own. They rescue the shipwrecked. They leap. Maybe that's what Dionysus saw. Not their cruelty, but their potential. That's the real magic, isn't it? To look at someone not for who they are, but who they could be, if released from everything they cling to too tightly. You take another sip of wine. The wind rattles the roof gently above your head. The sea hums softly in the distance. And your eyes fall to the table. There's something carved there, in the wood, old, faint. A name, a phrase. No, a sentence. Don't tie what's meant to dance. You grin. That's definitely his voice. You trace the words with one finger. The truth is, this whole experience, this journey through the myth, hasn't answered all your questions. It's raised more. That's what Dionysus does. He doesn't offer conclusions. He offers feeling. Confusion. Relief. Ecstasy. Sadness. The full glass of what it means to be human, swallowed in a single breath. And maybe that's why people still whisper his stories under their breath at festivals, or when the first cup is poured, or when they laugh harder than they meant to at something that's not really funny. Maybe it's how we honor him, by giving ourselves permission to unravel now and then. You stand again. The wind has shifted. Time to go. But not backward. Not home. Not really. You follow the path forward, the stones warm beneath your feet, your shadow long and wavy ahead of you. It feels good to walk, simple, grounded, human. You pass a goat again, different one, maybe, or maybe he's been following you. He snorts as you go by. You nod politely. He does not nod back. The trees thin, the sun dips lower. And there, through the golden light, you see something that makes you pause. A figure, far off, sitting under a cypress tree. You can't see his face, but the outline is familiar. A robe, a crown of ivy. A half-finished cup in one hand. And for just a moment, you feel it again, that pull, that tilt, that whisper in your bones that says, "Come dance, come change." But you don't approach. Not this time. You smile, you bow your head, and you walk on, because now you understand. You don't need to chase Dionysus. He'll find you again. When the music plays, when the vines grow, when the masks slip, you'll know. And when he does, maybe you'll be ready for another transformation. Maybe not into a dolphin, but into someone who can leap without fear. You walk on, the fading sun casting the world in that magical gold where everything looks softer, more forgiving. Even the rocks seem warmer, even your thoughts. There's a stillness now, not the kind that's empty, but the kind that holds something, a quiet fullness, like the silence after laughter, when everyone's breath slows, and no one wants to speak too soon in case it breaks the spell. You pass another marker, a stone, cracked in half and overgrown with moss. Barely visible beneath the green is a carving of two faces, one smiling, one yawning, not a comedy-tragedy pair, just two sleepy versions of joy. And next to it, scratched in what looks like someone's last ounce of energy, it was a good party. You chuckle, quietly, and keep going. Because you're close now, you can feel it. Not an end, exactly, but a pause. A soft place to land after the myth has run its course. The trail narrows, curls downward, and brings you to a cliff overlooking the water. But this time, there's a bench. Just a flat stone slab placed perfectly, facing the sea, with space for one person and a story. You sit. Below, the water rolls in steady waves. And on the horizon, dolphins. Again. Leaping, playing, circling like they've got nowhere else to be, like they're exactly where they're meant to be. You watch them, feeling your thoughts slow, your muscles soften, your breathing match the rhythm of the sea, and slowly, you begin to remember not just the myth you walked through, but why you walked through it. Because sometimes stories aren't told to teach. Sometimes they're told to carry you, to lift you over something, to gently set you down on the other side. You think of everything that's happened, the man on the beach, the purple footprints, the pirate ship turned jungle, the flute music, the transformation, the laughter, the echo of vines in motion, and most of all, the feeling. That strange and beautiful feeling that, just maybe, you've been unraveled in a way that will help you find yourself again. You rest your hand on the bench and feel something tucked in the crack between stones. You pull it out. A piece of parchment, curled, faintly wine-stained. You unroll it. It's a simple note, scrawled in a hand that is neither messy nor neat. I left you joy. Use it before it sours. No name. But you know. Of course you do. You place it back, like it belongs to whoever comes next. Because they will come. Someone always does. There will always be another wanderer, another sleepless soul, another person halfway between who they are and who they could be. And Dionysus, he'll be waiting. In the vines, in the laughter, in the places we go when we're ready to let go of something that doesn't serve us anymore. You close your eyes. Feel the sea wind on your skin. And you think, maybe the real power of Dionysus isn't in madness or wine or panthers that appear out of nowhere. Maybe it's in how gently he opens the door, invites you in, lets you decide what you're ready to leave behind. And when you step out again, you're still you. Just freer, a little lighter, maybe humming something ancient under your breath, maybe watching the horizon for the next leap. You rise from the bench slowly, not reluctantly, just respectfully. You look out at the dolphins one last time. You raise your hand in a quiet, private toast. To those who leap, and then, with the sun dipping low and your heart surprisingly calm, you turn and walk away. Toward whatever comes next. The path from the bench curves gently upward, following the contours of the land like a quiet farewell. Not rushed, not dramatic, just a gentle nudge onward. You feel the shift again, something inside you, letting go of tension you didn't realize you were still holding. Like an exhale you forgot to finish. There's no more mystery waiting in the trees. No panther curled in a vine-draped clearing. No pirate ship on the horizon. Just peace. And yet, everything feels more alive. You pass through a grove of cypress trees, their silhouettes long and soft in the amber twilight. The ground is warm beneath your feet. Somewhere nearby, you hear the gentle clink of a wind chime hollow bone, perhaps, or seashells strung together. It sings in the breeze like a lazy echo of the flute that once played itself in the dark. The air smells of figs, of thyme, of wood smoke and dusk. You reach another clearing. There's no shrine here, no mask, no altar, just a circle of smooth earth where the grass refuses to grow. In the center, a low stone ring surrounds what once might have been a fire. You sit at its edge, and for a long while, you do nothing. No thoughts, no analysis, no reaching for meaning. Just stillness. Just being. Because that's the final lesson, isn't it? Dionysus wasn't only the god of transformation, he was the god of presence, of immersing in the moment, no matter how absurd, ecstatic, or utterly bewildering it might be. To drink, to laugh, to dance until your feet forget they belong to a body, to cry without apology, to sleep under the stars and wake with grape juice in your hair and no memory of how the panther ended up with your cloak. And yet, to be whole, to be more yourself, not less. Historians still argue whether Dionysus was liberator or trickster, you whisper. But you already know. He's both. And something else too. He's the god who shows you your shape by helping you fall out of it. Not to shatter you. To remind you you're not made of stone. You lie back now, arms behind your head, eyes tracing the early stars. They're coming out again, one by one. Like old friends returning quietly to the party after things have calmed. You think of the pirates. You hope they're still swimming, still playing, still remembering, in whatever way dolphins can, the strange night when everything changed. Not because they asked, but because they had to, because they were stuck, and something unstuck them. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're weightless. Not flying, not falling, just floating. And as you drift there, not quite awake, not quite dreaming, you feel something settle next to you. You don't look. You don't need to. There's a faint scent of wine and fig leaves. And a presence. Smiling. Silent. Familiar. No panther. No flutes. Just a god who knows how to say goodbye without ever saying a word. The stars pulse overhead. The sea hums below. The myth folds itself around you, soft as a blanket, and you sigh once deep and full and begin to fade into the most peaceful kind of sleep. So now, as the last echoes of this tale melt into the hush of your room, let yourself drift. Let the vines recede. Let the panther curl back into shadow. Let the ship, long gone, become just a shape in the fog of your mind, trailing gentle waves and laughter. You are not a pirate. You are not a god. You are simply someone who followed the path of a myth and came out the other side a little slower, a little softer, a little more you. Let the weight of the day slip off your shoulders like petals falling from an overripe bloom. Let your breath deepen, your limbs sink, your thoughts quiet down to little ripples. There's nothing to hold on to now. No lesson to analyze. No symbols to decode. The story has done its work. The dolphins are swimming far out to sea. The footprints have faded from the sand. And the god of wine, madness, and becoming is smiling somewhere in the dark content, for now, to let you rest. So, if your body is still and your mind a little blurred, you're right where you need to be. Float there, gently, with nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just the sound of your own breath, as steady and calm as the waves beneath a night sky. You've earned this rest. Let it take you. Let go. Sleep.